Rohit felt a new sense of calm after mastering the lessons of focus, balance, and awareness. The students in the dojo were still whispering about the strange and amazing skills they had witnessed. Everyone had expected a simple demonstration of strength, but instead they had seen wisdom and control in action. Rohit could feel the energy of the dojo, a mix of respect, excitement, and curiosity. Mr. Anil looked at Rohit with a gentle smile. "There is one more lesson for today, Rohit," he said. Rohit's eyes widened. "Another one, sir?" he asked, both nervous and excited. Mr. Anil nodded slowly. "Yes, this is the lesson that will test everything you have learned. It is about perception and the ability to react without thinking. Are you ready?" Rohit nodded eagerly. His heart raced, but this time it was not from fear. It was from excitement. He had already learned patience, balance, focus, control, and awareness. He felt stronger and wiser, but he did not yet know how much this final lesson would surprise him. Mr. Anil picked up a small cloth bag from the corner of the dojo. "Inside this bag are several objects," he explained. "Some are light, some are heavier. You will need to identify the weight and position of each object without looking directly at them. Use your focus, balance, and awareness to sense them." Rohit stared at the bag in surprise. He had never heard of such a challenge before. "Watch me first," Mr. Anil said. He placed the bag on the floor and reached inside. Without looking at the objects, he carefully lifted each one, feeling its weight and shape. Then he placed them back gently. "Perception is not about seeing," he explained. "It is about sensing and understanding. You must trust your mind and your body together." Rohit stepped forward. He took a deep breath and bent down carefully. He reached into the bag and lifted an object. It felt different from anything he had imagined. He adjusted his grip and balanced his body. The students watched silently, amazed at his concentration. Rohit could feel the shape and weight in his hands. He gently placed the object on the mat in the correct position. Mr. Anil nodded. "Good, now continue. Do not rush. Sense each object before you act." Rohit moved carefully, feeling each item, judging its weight, and placing it in the right spot. Every movement was deliberate and controlled. He realized that he was using everything he had learned that day: patience, balance, focus, control, and awareness. The students whispered to each other, "I can't believe this. He is sensing objects without looking. This is incredible." Aman's eyes were wide with amazement. "I never thought Rohit could do this. The old man's teaching is extraordinary," he said quietly. Rohit reached the last object. It was heavier than the others, and he could feel its weight pressing against his hands. He adjusted his stance, balanced carefully, and gently placed it in the correct position. He stepped back, took a deep breath, and looked at Mr. Anil. Mr. Anil's eyes twinkled with approval. "Well done, Rohit. You have completed the challenge. You have shown focus, balance, awareness, control, and perception. These lessons are more important than any fight. Remember this day, for it is the day you began to understand true strength." The students erupted in quiet applause. Everyone was amazed and inspired. Rohit felt a rush of pride, but it was not the pride of strength or skill. It was the pride of learning, understanding, and growing. He realized that this day had changed him completely. He bowed deeply to Mr. Anil. "Thank you, sir. I never imagined I could learn so much in one day. I feel like I have discovered a new way of seeing the world." Mr. Anil smiled warmly. "True strength is in the mind and heart, young one. You have taken the first step on a long journey. Keep learning, keep practicing, and you will grow stronger every day." The students were quiet for a moment, feeling the calm and powerful presence of Mr. Anil. Rohit looked around the dojo, feeling respect for his teacher and gratitude for the lessons he had learned. He knew that the quiet old veteran had not only taught him martial arts, but had also taught him wisdom and understanding. That day, everyone in the dojo realized something important. True skill is not about showing off or winning a fight. It is about learning, understanding, and growing. Rohit had started the day thinking it would be a simple match, but he ended it with lessons that would stay with him forever. The quiet veteran had shocked everyone, not with force, but with wisdom and calm mastery. Rohit smiled to himself. He knew he had changed, and he was ready for whatever challenges would come next. He had discovered that strength without understanding is empty, and that true power comes from patience, focus, awareness, and wisdom. The dojo was quiet, yet everyone felt the energy of a lesson that would never be forgotten. After completing the perception challenge, Rohit felt a deep sense of calm and satisfaction. He had learned so much from Mr. Anil that day. Strength, speed, balance, focus, awareness, and perception. All had been tested and mastered in small but meaningful ways. Yet everyone in the dojo sensed that there was one final moment that would make this day unforgettable. Mr. Anil looked at Rohit with a gentle smile. "Rohit," he said softly, "today you have learned many lessons, but there is one last demonstration, not for you but for everyone. It will show the true meaning of martial arts. Are you ready?" Rohit nodded, curious and excited. The students gathered around, their eyes wide with anticipation. Mr. Anil placed his cane carefully on the floor and stepped back. "I will now show you something that seems impossible," he said. Everyone in the dojo leaned forward, holding their breath. They had already seen him stop Rohit's punches, teach balance and focus, and guide him through perception challenges. But now Mr. Anil promised something even more surprising. He lifted his hands slowly and began to move. His movements were gentle, almost like a flowing river. Yet as he moved, the air seemed to change. The students felt a strange calm energy, as if time had slowed down. Objects around the dojo, like small wooden sticks and cushions, seemed to respond to his presence. Rohit watched, amazed. He could not believe what he was seeing. Mr. Anil smiled softly. "Martial arts is not about winning fights. It is about understanding, control, and harmony. When your mind and body are calm, you can achieve more than you imagine." He stepped carefully, guiding small objects with subtle movements of his feet and hands. The wooden ball rolled gently across the floor, following his intention without being touched. The students gasped, their eyes wide with amazement. Rohit could hardly move. He had practiced perception and focus, but seeing Mr. Anil control objects with such calm mastery was astonishing. It was not magic. It was skill, wisdom, and years of experience combined with complete awareness. The old veteran's calm energy filled the room and everyone could feel it. "See, Rohit," Mr. Anil said gently. "True strength is not in force or speed. It is in understanding your own power, your focus, and your patience. The quiet mind can achieve what a hurried mind cannot." Rohit nodded slowly, feeling a deep respect for his teacher. He realized that all the lessons he had learned that day, the punches, the kicks, the perception exercises, were preparing him for this moment of understanding. Then Mr. Anil turned to the students. "Martial arts is not just for strength. It is for learning about yourself, respecting others, and finding harmony in every action. Remember this, and you will always grow stronger." The students clapped softly, some whispering in amazement. They had never imagined that a quiet old man could hold such mastery. Rohit smiled quietly. He understood now that the fight he had challenged at the beginning of the day was never about defeating anyone. It was about learning. Finally, Mr. Anil invited Rohit to step forward. "Rohit, you have learned well today. Now you can try to move the ball using your focus just like before, but with calm energy guiding you." Rohit took a deep breath and stepped carefully. He remembered every lesson: patience, balance, focus, awareness, and understanding. He extended his hands slowly, feeling the energy of the room and his own calmness. To everyone's surprise, the wooden ball began to roll gently, following Rohit's intention. He adjusted his movements, and it moved across the floor just as he wanted. The students erupted in soft applause, amazed that Rohit could now perform the same subtle control. Rohit looked at Mr. Anil, who smiled warmly. "You have learned well, young one. Today you discovered that true power is calmness, awareness, and understanding. That is the real lesson." Rohit bowed deeply, his heart full of gratitude. He felt proud not of strength or skill, but of learning something extraordinary. The dojo was quiet, filled with respect and admiration. Everyone realized that what they had witnessed that day was more than a demonstration of martial arts. It was a lesson in life. The sun began to set outside, casting a warm glow through the dojo windows. Rohit looked around at the students, the wooden floors, and the small objects that had been part of the challenges. He knew that this day would stay in his memory forever. He had started the morning thinking he would show off his strength, but he ended it, having discovered wisdom, control, and calm mastery. Mr. Anil picked up his cane and smiled at everyone. "Remember, young ones, martial arts is not about fighting. It is about learning, respecting, and understanding. That is what makes a true master." The students nodded silently, feeling inspired. Rohit stood quietly, feeling that he had experienced something truly remarkable. The quiet old veteran had shocked everyone, not with force, Michael and Laura had always dreamed of owning a home in a peaceful neighborhood. After months of searching, they finally found a small house with a white fence, a neat garden, and a cozy porch. They imagined themselves enjoying quiet evenings, tending to their garden and meeting friendly neighbors. At first, everything seemed perfect. The first signs of trouble came when Michael received a letter from the Homeowners Association, the HOA. The letter complained about the color of their curtains. Michael was confused because the curtains were soft beige, and they matched the rules mentioned in the HOA guide. He decided to ignore it, thinking it was a simple mistake. The next week, another letter arrived. This time it was about the height of their flower bushes. Michael measured them carefully and found that they were well within the limit. He wrote a polite reply explaining the measurements and asking for clarification. He thought that would be the end of it. But the letters kept coming. They were now about small things. The way the trash bins were placed, the number of cars in the driveway, and even the way their welcome mat looked. Laura tried to stay calm, but she could see Michael becoming frustrated. They both knew they were following all the rules. It seemed like the HOA was trying to find mistakes that did not exist. One afternoon, Michael was working in the garage when he noticed two men walking slowly toward their front door. The men wore dark suits and looked serious. Michael's heart started beating faster. He put down his tools and watched them carefully. The men stopped at the door and knocked firmly. Michael felt a chill run down his spine. He opened the door cautiously. The men flashed badges and said they were police officers. They claimed they had received complaints about the property and needed to speak with him immediately. Michael hesitated. Something about them seemed off. The badges did not shine like real police badges, and the way they spoke felt unnatural. Laura, who had been in the kitchen, heard the voices and came to the door. She looked at the men carefully. Her instincts told her that they were not real officers. She stayed calm but firm. She told Michael to call 911 just to be safe. The men frowned, clearly surprised. They spoke again, asking Michael to step outside so they could explain the rules. Michael refused. Laura stepped forward and said, "We will not let anyone force us to leave without proper authority. Please show real identification or leave." For a few tense moments, the men just stared. They seemed unprepared for this response. Finally, they muttered something and walked away. Michael and Laura watched as they disappeared down the street. Michael's hands were shaking. He felt a mix of relief and fear. That evening, Michael and Laura sat on their porch discussing what had just happened. They realized that the HOA might be trying to scare them into leaving. The letters, the complaints, and now the fake police visit, it was all too suspicious. Laura, who worked in law enforcement before, shared her thoughts calmly. She explained that people sometimes try to use fear to get what they want, but there were ways to protect themselves. Michael felt grateful for her experience. He knew they needed to be careful, but also strong. They decided to document everything, each letter, each visit, and every unusual event. They also agreed to strengthen their home security and stay vigilant. Michael and Laura understood that the situation could escalate, but they were not going to give in. They were determined to protect their home and their peace of mind. That night, as they went to bed, Michael looked around the room. He realized that their home was more than just a house. It was a place where they had built memories, laughter, and love. He promised himself that no one would take that away. Laura held his hand, and together they felt a renewed sense of courage. The next morning, Michael knew that the real challenge was just beginning. They had faced fake threats, but the real test would be standing strong while uncovering the truth about the HOA. Michael and Laura were ready for whatever came next. The next morning, Michael and Laura woke up early, feeling a mix of determination and worry. They knew the HOA might try something again, so they wanted to be ready. Michael went outside to check the yard and make sure everything looked normal. The flowers were neat, the lawn was freshly cut, and the trash bins were properly placed. Everything was exactly how the HOA rules required, but Michael could not shake the feeling that trouble was lurking. Laura made coffee while Michael checked the mailbox. Another letter had arrived. It was from the HOA again, but this one was different. The tone was sharper, almost threatening. They complained that Michael had obstructed the inspection of the property and warned that further action would be taken if compliance was not immediate. Michael read it carefully. He and Laura both knew they had not done anything wrong. Laura suggested that they respond politely but firmly, stating that they were following all rules and that any further action must follow proper legal procedures. Michael agreed. They drafted a letter together, making sure to document every detail. Laura even attached photos of the yard, the driveway, and the trash bins, proving that everything was within the HOA guidelines. After sending the letter, Michael felt a little relief, but the tension did not fade. Around noon, they heard a knock at the door. Michael looked through the window and saw two men in plain clothes again. His heart raced. He grabbed his phone and whispered to Laura to stay calm. Laura stepped to the door, showing a confident presence. The men claimed they were investigators sent by the HOA to check compliance. Michael noticed they were holding papers, but there was no official logo or identification. Laura asked them to wait outside while she verified their credentials. One of the men seemed irritated but did not argue. Laura reached for her old badge from her previous job. It was a professional identification card, showing her position and credentials. She held it up and calmly explained that any further investigation must be done officially, with proper legal authority. The men froze. It was clear they were not prepared to handle someone with real knowledge of law and procedures. Seeing the hesitation, Michael asked them to leave the property immediately. The men looked at each other, muttered something under their breath, and walked away. Michael and Laura watched from the door as they left. Michael exhaled slowly, realizing how close the situation had become. After they closed the door, Laura suggested that they take stronger measures. They decided to install security cameras around the house and at the entrance of the driveway. Michael agreed and even started researching motion sensors and alarms. They wanted to make sure no one could approach the house without leaving evidence. That afternoon, they met with a local attorney who specialized in property and HOA disputes. The attorney listened carefully to their story and advised them on their rights. He explained that the HOA could not send people pretending to be police or investigators without real authority. He also mentioned that any attempt to scare them into leaving could be considered harassment. Michael and Laura left the attorney's office feeling empowered. They now had legal guidance, and their plan to protect the home felt more concrete. On the way back, they discussed the importance of staying calm and documenting everything. Laura reminded Michael that fear could only help the HOA if they let it. Michael nodded. He realized that courage was just as important as planning. That evening, they checked the security cameras they had installed. The devices were simple, but they captured clear images. Michael and Laura tested them together, making sure they covered every possible approach to the house. They even set up alerts for movement near the front gate. It was a small step, but it gave them peace of mind. As night fell, Michael and Laura sat together in the living room, sipping tea. They knew the HOA might try something else, but they felt ready. The fake visits had shown them that courage, knowledge, and preparation were their best defense. Michael looked at Laura and smiled. Despite the tension, he felt grateful. They were working together, and nothing could take away the home they had built. Michael and Laura went to bed that night with renewed determination. They knew the next challenge could come at any time, but they were prepared. Together, they had taken the first real steps to protect themselves and their home. The next few days passed with cautious vigilance. Michael and Laura stayed alert, but the routine of checking cameras, documenting letters, and preparing for any unexpected visits became normal. They were careful not to let fear control their lives, but each small sound outside still made them tense. They understood that the HOA might try something new, and they had to be ready. One morning, Michael noticed a group of people gathered near the entrance of the neighborhood. They were dressed neatly and carried clipboards. At first, he thought it might be routine inspections, but something felt different. He called Laura, who was arranging flowers in the garden. "Laura, look at the people near the entrance. They are observing houses," he whispered. Laura looked through the camera feed and nodded. "Let's document everything. Photos, times, and details," she said. They carefully noted the number of people, their clothing, and the way they were acting. Laura suggested keeping a record of any interaction they might have. Michael agreed, knowing that documentation was their best defense. After breakfast, Michael and Laura decided to speak directly with their neighbors. They wanted to understand if anyone else had noticed unusual activity. They visited Mr. and Mrs. Lopez, who lived 2 houses down. The couple had observed some suspicious behavior but had ignored it, assuming it was nothing serious. After hearing Michael and Laura's story, They promised to be more attentive and keep an eye out. The neighbors also agreed to alert Michael and Laura immediately if they noticed anything unusual. Later that afternoon, the doorbell rang. Michael's heart raced, but he stayed calm. He peeked through the window and saw two men holding folders wearing plain clothes. Laura stood beside him, ready to act. They opened the door cautiously. The men claimed they were property compliance officers sent by the HOA. Michael and Laura asked for official identification and legal documentation. The men hesitated. Laura calmly showed her professional ID, explaining that any inspection must follow proper authority and procedure. The men seemed taken aback. One of them muttered that they would return later and walked away. Michael and Laura documented the encounter immediately, writing down the time, appearance, and behavior of the visitors. They also noted that no official documentation had been presented. They saved the recordings from the security cameras and stored them in a secure folder. Feeling that it was time to take stronger action, Laura suggested they consult a property rights specialist. They made an appointment with a lawyer who had experience in HOA disputes. The lawyer listened carefully to the story, reviewed all the letters, photos, and recordings, and advised them on how to protect themselves legally. He emphasized that any attempt by the HOA to force them out without following proper rules could be considered harassment. Michael and Laura left the office feeling more confident. They now had legal guidance and a clear plan. They also understood that the HOA might still try small tricks to intimidate them, but with documentation and law on their side, they were ready. That evening, they reviewed the security footage again. The suspicious car was recorded driving slowly past their house, and the two men from earlier were captured walking away. Michael realized how important it was to stay alert and prepared. Laura reminded him that courage came from knowledge and careful planning, not from avoiding challenges. They spent the rest of the evening strengthening the house further. Michael added extra locks to doors, while Laura checked that all cameras and sensors were functioning correctly. They also created a detailed log of all incidents, including letters, phone calls, and visits. Each entry added to the evidence they were building. Before going to bed, Michael and Laura sat together in the living room. They felt a quiet sense of pride. They had faced intimidation, stayed calm, and taken steps to protect themselves. The HOA might continue their attempts, but Michael and Laura were ready. The night was peaceful, and the house finally felt safe. Michael and Laura knew the battle was not over, but they had learned how to stand firm together. They understood that fear could not control them, and preparation could turn any challenge into an opportunity to remain strong. The next morning, Michael and Laura woke up early, determined to stay one step ahead of the HOA. They knew that staying calm, prepared, and aware was their best strategy. Laura suggested that they review all the security footage from the past week to make sure they had not missed anything important. Michael agreed, and they began carefully watching each clip. As they reviewed the recordings, Michael noticed a delivery truck moving slowly through the neighborhood. At first it seemed normal, but then he saw that the driver was looking directly at their house several times. Michael immediately called Laura over. "Laura, this driver is paying too much attention to us," he said quietly. Laura examined the footage closely. "We should note the license plate and the time. If it's connected to the HOA, we need proof," she said. They took screenshots of the truck and saved the video in their secure folder. Michael also wrote a note describing the driver and the direction the truck had come from. After breakfast, they decided to speak with more neighbors about the unusual activity. They went door to door, explaining what had been happening and showing some of the footage. Most neighbors were surprised, admitting that they had noticed unusual behavior but had not thought it was serious. Some agreed to keep an eye out and contact Michael and Laura if anything suspicious occurred. Feeling more confident with the neighborhood's support, Michael and Laura returned home. While organizing their documents, they received a phone call from the HOA office. A calm voice claimed they were sending official inspectors to verify the property later that day. Michael and Laura exchanged a look. They knew the HOA had tried intimidation before. Laura suggested they prepare a firm response and remain professional. She also reminded Michael to keep their security cameras recording and ready to capture any visitors. When the men arrived in the afternoon, they were dressed in plain clothes and carried folders. Michael stayed near the door, phone in hand, ready to record, while Laura positioned herself calmly. The men introduced themselves as property compliance officers. Michael asked for identification and official documentation. The men hesitated, clearly unprepared. Laura calmly displayed her professional ID, explaining that inspections must follow proper procedures and legal authority. The men looked nervous. After a few tense moments, they said they would return later and left without further comment. Michael and Laura immediately recorded the details of the encounter. They noted the time, appearance, and behavior of the visitors and stored the information in their secure folder. They also saved the camera footage showing the men leaving. Laura emphasized that careful documentation was their strongest tool in showing any pattern of harassment. Feeling confident but cautious, Michael suggested they focus on building more security measures. They installed additional lights around the property and tested motion sensors for areas that had previously been blind spots. Laura adjusted camera angles to ensure there were no gaps. Each improvement made them feel more secure, and their home began to feel like a true safe space. Later that evening, they reviewed all the documents, letters, and recordings one more time. Laura suggested that they prepare a detailed report summarizing everything that had happened so far. Michael agreed and began drafting a timeline of events, noting each suspicious visit, letter, and unusual occurrence. Laura added notes about their security measures and neighbor support. As night fell, Michael and Laura sat together in the living room, reflecting on the week. They realized how far they had come. The HOA had tried intimidation, but each attempt had been met with preparation, calm, and courage. Their home was safe, their evidence was strong, and they felt more in control than ever before. Laura smiled at Michael. "We have turned fear into action. They cannot scare us anymore," Michael nodded. "We are ready for whatever comes next," he said. Together, they felt a renewed sense of confidence. The house was not just a home anymore. It was a place of strength, courage, and unity. The next morning, Michael and Laura woke with determination. They knew that the HOA might try something unexpected, and they wanted to be ready. Laura suggested reviewing all their security footage and notes from the past week. Michael agreed. Together, they carefully organized everything, creating a clear timeline of events. Around mid-morning, Michael noticed a dark sedan slowly driving through the neighborhood. The car stopped near their house, and the driver seemed to be observing their property. Michael immediately called Laura, who came to the window. "Laura, the same car is back. Look at how the driver keeps staring at us," Michael said quietly. Laura examined the footage from their outdoor cameras. "Take screenshots and note the time. We need proof in case this escalates," she said calmly. Michael did exactly that. They wrote a description of the car, the license plate, and the behavior of the driver, adding it to their growing file of evidence. Later, Michael suggested they speak with their neighbors again. They wanted to make sure everyone was aware of the suspicious activity. They visited a few homes and showed some of the footage. Most neighbors were shocked and promised to keep watch. One neighbor even offered to call Michael if the dark sedan appeared again. Feeling supported, Michael and Laura returned home, confident that they were not alone. In the afternoon, there was a knock at the front door. Michael and Laura exchanged a look, both alert. Michael peeked through the window and saw two men in plain clothes holding clipboards. The men approached confidently, as if expecting compliance. Laura opened the door and greeted them calmly. The men introduced themselves as property compliance officers sent by the HOA. Michael asked for identification and official documentation. The men hesitated, clearly not expecting resistance. Laura calmly displayed her professional ID from her former law enforcement job. She explained that any inspection must follow proper legal procedures. The men looked surprised and uncomfortable. After a tense pause, one muttered, "We will return later," and they walked away. Michael and Laura immediately documented the encounter, noting the time, appearance, and behavior of the visitors. They saved the security camera footage and added it to their secure file. Feeling that it was time to take stronger action, Laura suggested contacting the local authorities for advice. Michael agreed. They called the non-emergency line, explained everything that had happened, and asked what steps they could take if the HOA continued harassment. The dispatcher reassured them that officers could patrol the neighborhood and that documenting everything was the right approach. That evening, Michael and Laura focused on improving their home security. They added extra lighting near entrances, tested all motion sensors, and adjusted the camera angles for maximum coverage. Laura reminded Michael that preparation was their best defense and that every improvement made the house safer. While reviewing the footage later that night, Michael noticed something unusual. The dark sedan had returned and was parked further down the street. Its occupants appeared to be taking photos of their home. Michael quickly alerted Laura. They decided to save all images and record the incident in detail. Laura suggested emailing the evidence to their lawyer so it was officially on record. By bedtime, Michael and Laura felt a mix of relief and confidence. They had faced repeated attempts at intimidation, but had remained calm and prepared. They understood that courage was not about avoiding fear, but standing firm despite it. Their home had become a symbol of their unity, strength, and determination. Laura smiled at Michael. No matter what they try next, we are ready. Knowledge, preparation, and courage are stronger than fear, she said. Michael nodded. We have turned every challenge into proof that they cannot control us. Our home is ours and we will protect it together. As the night settled, the house felt peaceful. Michael and Laura knew the HOA might continue trying to intimidate them, but they had learned how to face every challenge with patience, intelligence, and teamwork. Their home was safe and their spirits were stronger than ever. The next morning, Michael and Laura woke with a sense of purpose. They had faced repeated attempts by the HOA to intimidate them, and now they were ready to take full control of the situation. Laura suggested compiling all their evidence into one organized report for their lawyer and the local authorities. Michael agreed. Together, they sorted letters, photos, videos, and notes, creating a complete timeline of every suspicious visit, letter, and vehicle. By late morning, they had a clear plan. Laura suggested contacting the HOA board directly with a firm but polite letter. The letter would state that any future attempts to harass or intimidate them would be reported to law enforcement and could have legal consequences. Michael typed the letter carefully while Laura reviewed it, making sure the tone was professional and confident. Once completed, they sent it via certified mail to ensure there was an official record of delivery. In the afternoon, Michael and Laura received a call from their lawyer. He had reviewed their report and the HOA letter. You have done everything correctly, he said. You have documented everything, stayed calm, and followed legal procedures. The HOA has no right to intimidate you or send anyone pretending to be officials. If they try again, you can take stronger legal action, and the evidence you have will support your case. Michael and Laura felt a wave of relief. They realized that preparation, calmness, and knowledge had turned the situation in their favor. For the first time since the HOA's harassment began, they felt in control. They also agreed to keep their security system active and continue documenting any unusual activity, just to be safe. That evening, there was another knock at the door. Michael and Laura exchanged a calm glance. Michael peeked through the window and saw two men in plain clothes. They approached confidently, but Laura remained composed. She opened the door and greeted them politely. The men introduced themselves as compliance inspectors again. Laura calmly asked for identification and documentation. The men fumbled, clearly realizing that their intimidation tactics would no longer work. Laura reminded them that any attempt to enter or inspect the property without proper legal authority would be considered harassment and could be reported. The men looked uneasy. One of them muttered, "We will leave," and they walked away without saying another word. Michael and Laura immediately documented the encounter and saved the camera footage, adding it to their secure file. They realized that the HOA had finally recognized that Michael and Laura were prepared, knowledgeable, and united. With the HOA's intimidation tactics no longer effective, Michael and Laura began to enjoy their home again. They spent the next few days tending to their garden, organizing their home, and even inviting neighbors over for tea. Their home felt peaceful and safe once more. Laura smiled at Michael one afternoon as they were arranging flowers in the garden. We did it. We stayed calm, prepared, and handled everything carefully. We didn't let fear control us, she said. Michael nodded, feeling proud. Yes, and we have turned our home into a place of safety and strength. Nothing can take that away now. The couple also continued working with their lawyer to ensure the HOA would not try any further harassment. They sent copies of their documentation and reports to the authorities, making it clear that any future attempts would be taken seriously. Weeks later, The neighborhood returned to normal. The HOA's aggressive behavior ceased completely. Michael and Laura had shown that preparation, courage, and knowledge were more powerful than fear and intimidation. They had protected their home and their peace of mind, and the community respected their determination. One evening, Michael and Laura sat on their porch enjoying the sunset. They held hands and reflected on everything they had been through. "We faced every challenge together and stayed strong," Laura said softly. Michael smiled. "Our home is safe, our life is peaceful, and we learned that courage comes from staying calm, being prepared, and standing together. Nothing can scare us now." Their home, once threatened, had become a symbol of their strength, unity, and determination. Michael and Laura knew that no matter what challenges came their way, they could face them together. The HOA had tried to intimidate them, but in the end, preparation, courage, and knowledge had turned the tables completely. Michael and Laura went to bed that night feeling safe, proud, and confident. Their home was no longer just a place to live. It was a fortress of their courage and unity, and nothing could change that.